The EFF condemns tribalism, and we must hate tribalism the same way we hate racism. And we call on all our structures and ground forces in KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, Limpopo, Northwest, and all other provinces to remain focused and disciplined without degenerating into tribalistic tendencies. The EFF 2024 Elections Manifesto is a clear program of action, particularly our commitments on land, jobs, energy and electricity, education, public safety, and all other areas under the clarion call, our land and jobs now, stop load shedding.
The leader of our generation, CIC, the Commander-in-Chief, President of Economic Freedom Fighters from South Africa, there. His speech is always reminding us the role of this current generation to Africa. So this speech from Julius Malema, speaking about how Africans, we must hate tribalism, racism, and those things that will cause us not to unite. I want you, fellow brothers, sisters in the continent and those who are in diaspora, to listen to this speech very well and to share your thought in the comment.
The emphasis is on land. The emphasis on land derives from the fact that 30 years since the attainment of political freedom, 80% of the population continues to occupy less than 10% of South Africa's land. Landlessness is still the lived reality of the majority of our people. The emphasis on jobs is motivated by the sad reality that after 30 years of attempts at addressing the joblessness, more than 15 million capable South Africans who need jobs are unemployed, and with no hope that anything will change unless the current government is changed. The emphasis on now is informed by the fact that 30 years is rather a long time for any political party to keep making empty promises. The emphasis on now is also because our people live in absolute poverty. Similarly, the emphasis on now is because our people are landless. The emphasis on now is because our people are jobless. Yet again, the emphasis on now is because the crisis of racialized poverty, inequality, underdevelopment, landlessness, and joblessness are being experienced now and must be resolved now. The emphasis on stop load shedding is due to the fact that despite many empty promises, the South African government has not brought forth a dependable electricity plan that will guarantee the supply of electricity to all its citizens. We remain resolute that the EFF government will expropriate all land without compensation for equal redistribution in use, create millions of jobs through reindustrialization, using the state, stop load shedding, rebuilding our education system, and fix crime in this country. We remain resolute that the EFF government will prioritize rebuilding of South Africa's defense capabilities, prioritize primary health care, increase social grants, and fight for women to end gender-based violence. This and many other commitments are what will change the lives of our people and deliver economic freedom in our lifetime. We condemn this suspension of the EFF members of parliament. The timing of the suspension was deliberate to prevent the EFF leadership from attending the State of the Nation address to protect the dying ANC and the incompetent president who is out of touch with reality. The EFF has picked up that Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa continues to misrepresent the achievements of the governing party. He claims that the past 30 years have changed the lives of our people. Yet the past 30 years of so-called freedom has brought nothing to most of our people. He claims that the governing party has built strong institutions to protect fundamental freedoms and human rights of all people. Yet it is the ANC government who massacred 34 mine workers, broad daylight, killed Andries Tatane, and continue to allow students to fall in the pit toilets. He claims that we have a diverse the economy whose minerals and agricultural products reach every corner of the world while creating jobs. Yet these sectors remain dominated by whites and our people are massively unemployed. Our honest and truthful view of what transpired in the past 30 years is that apartheid only ended on paper and continued unchanged, particularly in the economy. We continue to export raw material while many of the industries in South Africa have closed since 1994, and it has worsened since Mr. Ramaphosa took over. More than 11 million people are unemployed. There are more than 3 million people in South Africa today who have lost all hope of ever finding a job. Majority of these are young people. 30 years ago in 1994, majority of landowners in South Africa were the white colonial settlers, and 30 years later in 2024, the majority of landowners are still the settlers and their biological descendants. 30 years ago in 1994, wealth was concentrated in the hands of a few white rich people, and 30 years later, in 2024, the economy of South Africa is still owned, controlled, and dominated by the very same few rich white people. 30 years ago, in 1994, more than 90% of informal settlement dwellers were black Africans. And 30 years later, in 2024, informal settlement dwellers still look like me and you. 30 years ago, the levels of black-on-black violence was very high, and 30 years later, the levels of black-on-black violence continue unabated, with more than 27,000 people murdered in 2023. This 30 years of so-called democracy has only brought more wealth to the white minority settlers and condemned our people to perpetuate an endless poverty.
Because the role of the current generation is to unite the continent of Africa. Because the last generation, our founding fathers, like Julius Nyerere, Modibo Keita, Kenneth Kaunda, Nelson Mandela, Thomas Sankara, and so on, Robert Mugabe, they do their role of taking this continent in the hands of Africans. So we, the current generation, our role is to unite as one. We have to share banks, common language, same currency in all countries, and remove these borders in order to move free from the country to the country, because Africa, we are one. They say they want borders in Africa, but there in Europe, they have no borders. They move freely from the continent to the continent, but they imposed these borders in Africa in order to make their interest, it is the interest of them, not we Africans. So let us remove this in order to see the value of our resources, to see the value of each other as African. So fellow brothers and sisters, this is the speech I share with you. Please, if you have anything, write in the comment section so that we can have these ideas together and share this to many Africans as you can. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share our video.
And suffering. It is the EFF that will bring about true freedom, economic freedom, and change the lives of our people. We call on all our people not to be tricked into believing falsehood by fraudsters who are hell-bent on selling strategic state-owned assets that belongs to our people. Now that we have launched the 2024 election manifesto, we are going to launch provincial manifestos on the following dates. Gauteng Provincial Manifesto launch will be held on the 2nd of March 2024 at Dobsonville Stadium